There's a lot that we still do not understand about the human body, especially when it comes to very basic and core biological functions that are present in all of us. For example, we feel tired and sleepy, so we sleep. But how does our brain know when to wake up? What is it that measures when the brain and the body has had enough sleep? Similarly, we feel thirsty, so we drink water. But how does our body know when the thirst is quenched? Clearly, something is getting saturated with water and is being measured, but what is it? What is it that the brain is tracking? What's that counter? So far, the only thing we understand is that it has something to do with neurons because neurons transmit signals to and from the brain. But a new study just now has discovered preliminary results for where the sensation for the quenching of thirst comes from. And surprisingly, the source seems to be in the liver. In this video, we'll take a look at what this study has found, how thirst signals are tracked from the intestine and how the liver responds. I'm Sandhya Ramesh and this is Pure Science. When a person is thirsty, there is less water in the blood and something known as osmolytes become more concentrated. Osmolytes are organic compounds and minerals like sodium in our blood, electrolytes. When there's this fluid imbalance, the brain can detect it. It then sends a signal to neurons in our body that the body needs water. Why is this water even needed? Because all life has a very tricky and delicate fluid balance that needs to be maintained in the physical body. The fluid that is outside of our cells has to be at the same pressure as the fluid that is inside the cells. So the movement of water in and out of the cell is net zero. If the fluid outside the cell has more concentrations of osmolytes, it will start to pull out water from within our body's cells, causing them to rupture. So thirst is essentially dehydration in the interstitial fluid or the fluid that is present outside of our cells. There is another type of thirst that occurs in our body, another type of dehydration, and that is the loss of fluid volume, which is also measured as a part of the thirst mechanism. How else can the body understand the concentration of substances in the blood? This loss of volume of fluid can occur when there is no pressure imbalance in the body, such as when a person vomits or has diarrhea. So there's a loss of volume without the initial thirst that we saw earlier. So this then triggers the kidneys to kick into action at the same time as the blood vessels start to constrict because there's less fluid to flow through them. The kidneys then start to discard sodium or salt from our plasma. So that's why when someone has diarrhea or large fluid loss, the body also needs salts and we take electrolytes to replenish them. This entire system works our whole life, but as we age, especially over the age of 50 years, the neurons start to become less efficient and the intensity of thirst sensation goes down. So the elderly population are always at a higher risk of becoming dehydrated. Now we understand that these are all the ways that the body signals that it needs water because the brain knows the body needs water. But how does the brain know when as soon as we drink water, how much is enough? Because it's not like we're putting water into our bloodstream directly. It goes to our gut, to our intestines, so it needs time to replenish the bloodstream, at least 10 to 15 minutes. And drinking excessive water is dangerous because if blood becomes too diluted, it can cause overhydration or water intoxication, which can lead to death. Why does water intoxication occur? Because the reverse process occurs where the fluid outside the cells now have a low volume of electrolytes because it's diluted. So this fluid will start to move into the cells via osmosis. So cells start to swell, organs start to swell, pressure is exerted against organ walls, especially the brain's walls. Then nervous system dysfunction will follow and cardiac dysfunction occurs and there could be seizures, coma or even death. But this highly dangerous process doesn't occur normally just when we consume water. So how does the brain measure or get the right amount of fluids needed in the blood from the intestines where the water goes? About 4 years ago, there was a study that was published that tried to answer the same question. Activated neurons were tracked from the brains of genetically modified mice that were thirsty in the labs of Caltech. The mice's genome was modified to allow tracking connections between different neurons. The research team discovered that neurons in a region of the hypothalamus part of the brain seem to play a role in thirst quenching, signaling a stop to drinking. When these mice were modified to make these neurons non-functioning, they drank twice as much water. When the opposite occurred, when these neurons were overactivated, even dehydrated mice did not drink water. So the activation of this neuron signaled a stop to drinking water. But more importantly, what the team discovered was that the neurons were responding to not the presence of water in the body, but how much water was being gulped by the mice, the volume and speed of water that was going in the body, and only liquid water. The neurons were not activated when water was given in gel form where the mice had to chew to swallow. And of course, they were also not activated with food. But also crucially, they did not activate for tiny sips of water even when the total volume of water ingested was the same. So the researchers concluded that it was the speed at which the water was entering the system as the mice gulped the water. But what measures the total volume matches it with the required amount of water and signals the stop, and make sure that what you're drinking is water and not, say, oil. In the paper that was published this week, the scientists from the same lab did a follow-up to their research and tried to answer these questions. To find out where the brain first senses changes in blood's concentration of electrolytes, the researchers ran water through mice intestines and saw which neurons got activated. They discovered that the nerve called the vagus nerve or the vagus nerve was activated as soon as water started flowing through the intestines. This nerve runs from the intestine along multiple organs to the brain. So to pinpoint where exactly the signal got generated from, they started to cut off this nerve's connection with different parts of the body. When they disconnected the nerve from the intestines, they found that it still activated and functioned. But when they cut it off from the liver, it did not. They then realized that it was veins in the liver that carry blood from the intestine to the liver, which activated the signaling system in the nerve. These veins are responsible for carrying nutrients and fluids from the intestines to the liver, where they get filtered and metabolized. So, of course, they also monitor thirst. But also just running water through these veins, these portal veins as they're called, was not enough too. The researchers discovered that that did not activate the nerve. The water had to come specifically from the intestines and specifically through ingestion, so there was something else that contributed to the signal as well. More analysis showed that this turned out to be a hormone called the vasoactive intestinal peptide or VIP. This hormone plays a key part in vasodilation or dilating our blood vessels. It does things like stimulate our heart to contract when it beats and is also responsible for lowering blood pressure and relaxing the bladder and stomach during the digestive process. Vasodilation increases the flow of blood and fluids and causes our muscles to relax. So when the water reaches the veins in the liver after the VIP hormone is triggered, there is signaling in the vagus nerve. And this is all that the researchers were able to find out so far and published in their paper. The findings now ask further questions. How does water levels cause a rise in VIP levels? They couldn't tell this just yet. How does water specifically trigger it? They couldn't tell that either. And also, the signals from the nerve itself weren't as strong as they should be were it a singular signaling mechanism. Since water is so crucial to our bodies, it is likely that there are multiple redundant systems in our body that monitor water intake. There is only preliminary research in this field so far, and this piece of research has given us a lot of crucial information, but has also raised more doubts and questions. All these bits of missing information now and more, we hope to find out soon in the future.